Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Becoming Unshakable podcast with your host, me, Heather R. Younger. And today I am so thrilled to have one of my best friends on here, Kimberly Davis. And I have been just wanting to talk to her so much about her journey. And I cannot wait for you to meet her and to learn more about her work and just who she is as a person. So, welcome, Kimberly.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. I love spending time with you, Heather.
Oh my goodness. Like wait, there's a for me personally, those who have joined me, there's just very few people I just want to spend extra time with and hang with and lounge with and have so much fun with. And Kimberly's one of them. So I can't wait for you to learn just more about her. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, we talked about this before. It's this when we think about unshakable leadership, particularly on the self leadership side, just like owning our own journey, not waiting for someone else to give us the green light, not waiting for permission to do the thing that fills us up. And that is so you. And let's talk to everybody about something I think very brave that you did. But okay, first let's say talk about what it is that your focus is. What do you do kind of from the thing that fills you up maybe career wise? And then let's talk about the thing I want to talk about that I think exemplifies both brave and unshakable leadership and just self leadership in such a powerful way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Heather, I think, our journeys are so similar in that I started with you teach what you need to learn, right? And and I wanted to bring more bravery into my life. I had, when I was young, I was this kind of fearless kid, and then you grow up and you want to fit in and you want to do the right things and you want to be liked and all of those things. And I found that I was starting to play smaller in my life and put parts of myself up in a box and into the closet and just kind of leave it there to grow dust. And what I realized is that, so let me back up just a little bit. I did theater for years. And so a number of the tools that we used in the theater would help me feel really courageous when I was out on the stage. I just, I could step into my power, and I wasn't worried about what people thought. And I just felt more comfortable in my own skin than I did when I wasn't on the stage. And I attribute a lot of that to some of the tools that we use in the theater. And so a million years ago, back in 2008, gosh, it feels like crazy, like 2008, I started doing work, what I was calling at the time on stage leadership, which was, how do you be your most powerful you on the stage? And in the fact that being on stage, while we used theater tools, it was more around, as a leader, you were always on stage because people are always paying attention and they're always deciding, whether or not they want to follow you or not. And so how you show up matters. And so that became the calling of my life. And what I started to realize is I was growing growing my body of work is I was getting ready to write a book about it because people are like, this is really cool and I've not found anything like this. And I thought, well, if I write a book, I can't call it onstage leadership because people won't know what the heck that means. And so
Exactly.
I started to think about what's the common denominator for people who are willing to be their true selves powerfully in the world. And so that's where I landed on bravery, is because I think the most brave thing we can do is to be our true selves, powerfully, constructively, responsibly in the world, and take responsibility for the impact that we have on others. And so that's where bravery came in. And what's been great about that is that when you teach bravery, it forces you to model bravery, even if you don't want to, right? And so I'm always having to hold myself accountable to myself and to the
Mm.
impact that I want to have, and to what is it I'm really trying to take a stand for in the world, and give people permission to be their brave selves in relation to that. So that's
So
kind of.
tell everybody what you decided to do. Gosh, that was this 4 years ago? Now I'm
So
losing track
this
of
was in
time.
the height of COVID. It was in the height of COVID.
Okay.
I know, because I know what you're talking about. So during the height of COVID, things were really uncertain, right? We didn't know what was going to happen. A lot was going down in the world. And I remember, on February 29th, which was leap year in 2020, my father passed away. And 2 weeks later, COVID hit. And it was this wake up call I don't know how many wake-up calls we need in a lifetime, but it seems like we need way more than our share. But it was this
So
wake-up
true.
call that told me, if there's something you want to do in your life, waiting waiting to do it might mean you may never do it. I mean, given that we've got this global pandemic going on. And I think that's true for everything. If we wait to do brave before we feel brave, we might never step into our brave. And so that single decision started to propel my me and my family, my husband and my son. I talked them into it. They were game. They were, when it came down to asking, would you do this? They said, okay, let's do this. And so what we did is we sold our house in Austin, Texas, and packed up everything we owned and put it in a container, and we moved to Costa Rica. And our son was in the middle of his sophomore year in high school. So we had to find a location where he could go to school if the world ever opened up, right? And he could get a US diploma so he could go to college. And both Tim and I do a lot of work for Southern Methodist University. I'm on faculty for their exec ed program. And so I needed, if the world ever opened up again. And at that point, we didn't know, we didn't know if that was going to happen, but we needed to be able to take an easy flight into Dallas, and we needed good internet. And so those were kind of our driving forces. And we'd been to Costa Rica twice before on vacation. We loved it. We had never thought we would move there ever. But I had always wanted to live in another country and speak another language. And so when it came down to what are the things you want to do in your lifetime that you may not get a chance to do if you don't take action on it now, that's what propelled us to move to Costa Rica. And we were there for 2.5 years and absolutely loved it. We still have a house in Costa Rica. But our son got into University of California in San Diego. So that's where we are now. But who knows? We may end up going back. It was a fantastic 2.5 years. I regret none of that decision at all. We met a remarkable community of people. I think we became different people in the course of it. You learn about yourself in ways that you can't when you just do your life the way you've always done your life. And it also, I think it was a reminder that you can do things that scare you. You can do hard things and not only survive but thrive, but you have to make a powerful choice to do it. It doesn't just happen, like you
Hmm.
don't just up and move to Costa Rica without a really clear decision to do it. And
Yes.
the power of the clear decision, Heather, I think unlocks everything.
Oh, it so does. And I always, one of the things that's just become super crystal clear for me over these last probably couple years, as I'm in my 50s now,
Mm.
is the clarity of like what I value most. Because,
Yeah,
I feel like
right.
prioritization and values, sometimes they do change, but there are these foundational things that they're always in play, but you don't quite realize how they're playing out in your
Right.
life.
Right.
And for you, I mean, you have obviously a very close and smallish family, but close, and
Mhm.
and Jeremy
Yeah.
being full on locked in, like I'm totally up for, like, everybody being totally up for the
Yeah.
goal, totally up for the challenge. I think is it's a huge part of it. It's so inspiring. I mean, I can remember when you were doing it, and I was like, you're doing what and what now? What's
Are
happening?
you crazy?
And I was like, what's happening? What's happening? But then, to be honest, like as you were doing it and you were living it out, and I'm sure like many other people, were going like, what can we do to bring out a dream that we have to life? What are the choices
Right.
that we can make now? Because it's all about choices, what you said.
Yeah,
What are the
that's
choices that
right.
we can make now to start to put into play? Maybe we want something similar, and it is true
Yeah.
because my husband had gotten his he was already kind of, he was solidifying, he already had his citizenship, but
Yeah.
he was born in Panama, but he had gone back and was doing that. And then I was like, well, maybe I could like start like residence, like maybe I could start.
Yeah.
And I started to investigate, but it was because of you. Like you were an
Yeah.
impetus. You don't realize that's the other
Yeah.
thing that I
But
say
that's
inside
what
of
we
this.
do for each other, right? And I
Yes.
think I think we forget about the power. I mean, because all my work is about impact. What's the impact you want to have, right?
Mhm.
But we aren't conscious of the impact that we have on other people through our
Mm.
own actions. Our
Yes.
ability to model something gives people permission to look at their life in a new way and their
Hmm.
possibilities in a new way. And then I look at you and your life and everything you're doing, and you inspire me every day.
Yeah.
And that is what is so tremendous about making powerful choices, not only in what you do in your life, but who you surround yourself with.
That is so true. And that's why I was like, the people were like, I had someone say, become unshakable or unshakable leadership. And I love the becoming idea
Yeah,
because I feel like, because I've always believed that we're works in progress.
right,
And in
right.
fact, if we were ever somebody who thinks we're done with our learning or done with
Oh,
our
that,
growing,
yeah,
we
that's,
should just go die and lay down. Like, right? I just can't ever do that. So such a that's such a huge belief for me. That's like that value of always constantly learning,
yeah,
always improving, always getting
yeah.
better. Which I know some people go, that's also exhausting, Heather. Like, can you stop growing and trying to learn and trying to get better?
But you
Some
know what?
people think
I
it's
actually, so
exhausting.
I push back on that a little bit because yes, I get it. And it depends on your reason why you're doing
Yeah.
that, right?
Yes.
So if you're doing it because you feel like you have to prove yourself,
Yes.
then that is going to deplete you. And what are you telling yourself? If you have to prove
Totally.
yourself to other people, then you somehow think you're not enough,
Yep.
that you have to get some kind of external validation for your value, right?
Yep.
But if you're doing it because, see, for myself personally, and you know, I'm human, so it waxes and wanes, right? Like everybody else. But for myself personally, it's because I want to experience what Kimberly would be like at her best. What would that be
Hmm.
like? Like I think about going to Cirque du Soleil, right? And I'm so blown away by the talent of these people that have spent their entire life doing these incredible, crazy things, right? Now, I would not try and don't want to try. I have zero desire to, you know, hang off a trapeze and fly through the air. However, what it shows me is what the human being, a human being is capable of when they
Hmm.
commit themselves to something, right? And so
Hmm.
I want to commit myself to what what would my best self look like? And I don't want to die with that left inside of me.
Hmm.
I want to experience it. I want because if I get to experience it, then the ripple effect is I can make a bigger impact on other people. That will make an impact
Yes.
on other people. The ripple effect of us doing that, I find that
Mm,
exciting. And also I think it keeps life interesting. You know,
hmm.
for me,
Totally.
if I've got this hunger to understand and grow and be and become, right?
Mm,
Become, then I'm never bored.
yes,
It's never boring.
totally.
There's
Yeah.
always something to do. There's always something to learn and ways to grow and people to meet and things to try. And to me, I think that that's what makes life exciting.
The other angle, which I really, this is just kind of me. I think even when I chose my last podcast title with Leadership at the Heart, I remember the podcast producer, who he's still my producer today, Neil. I remember him saying, "Take some time to think about it." I'm like, "Nope, don't need to think about it. This is exactly what it needs to be, right?" And it was just like that was
Right.
where I was at. That
Right.
was where it
Yeah.
needed to be what it needed to be, right? And in this case, I kind of in the same thing. I like this is I gave it a little thought, and then it's done.
Yep.
And as I think about it some more, though, I think the becoming I like as well because I feel like there's grace inserted in it. So
Yes, I agree.
if you
I agree
say
with
like
that.
if my promise to
I am
you as the
unshakable.
podcast host,
No.
thank you, right? And then it says like that's who I am, and then
Yeah.
and it's so funny because I'll have like I have my older son, my eldest Sebastian will say, "Oh, my super mom," and I'm like, "Oh, I hate when you call me that." And
Yeah.
he goes, "Well, it's just because you were able to do so many things." And I'm like, "I just don't like I don't like the term super mama because it does make me feel like I'm in a perfect state. I've arrived at this heightened whatever, and
Well,
I
and how do you
don't
ever
like
live up
that."
to that?
Yeah, who
Because you
how do you
can't.
ever do that? Yeah, so
Right?
like becoming says we're just in a constant thing, but like there are going to be times where I fall back,
Yeah.
or there are times just because I say it's
Yeah.
unshakable doesn't mean you're never shaken.
Yeah.
Like
And what
I'm
I
getting
love
over a
about
cold. I was
becoming
shaken.
unshakable, Heather, is the same thing I love about brave leadership, right? Is that it forces you to stay in your own journey about
Yes.
this is the person I want to be in my life. I want to be someone who is
Mm,
unshakable. I know I'll never get there. It will
yep.
always be a becoming.
Yep.
However, it's going to force every decision I make to look at it through that filter.
Totally. Yeah, the level of
Yeah.
authenticity that's required. Because I mean, for me, like I can't sleep if I feel like I've done something out of alignment with who I am. And so I'll say, and people say, why are you overthinking this? Like for whatever it is, whatever decisions, you see, like you're overthinking. This seems so obvious to me. And I'm like, well, maybe, but like it has to feel real. Like it has to feel like people have to be
Yeah,
like, that's Heather.
and the thing too, I think that people underestimate is that there are values that are in tension with each other, right? So
Yes.
things are not always cut and dry. I do this
Hmm.
because I believe this and this is my value. I've got this value and I've got this value, and
Yes.
sometimes they're in conflict
Yes.
with each other, and now I've got the really hard work to do to figure out, where does this fit for me? And I think that's where becoming unshakable is so powerful, because it's what happens usually when these values become in conflict with one another. You
Hmm.
find yourself either just retreating and stepping back, or letting something that's really important to you take a hit, and leaning only into one.
Hmm.
This requires the hard work of being human, right?
Yes, yes, and it is such hard work. I am curious for you when we think about this journey of becoming unshakable. Is there something that's happened, let's just say in the last, since let's say COVID, or even just in your life, if you want to share,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
maybe you feel like has forced you to become like more resilient, more clear, more like centered on the thing you want to be?
yeah.
Is there some event? Is there anything like that for you?
There are a number of events that have led to that. I mean, so just early on in my life, I mean, I was born 2 months premature with dislocated hips, and so that left me kind of pigeon-toed. And so, as a kid growing up, a little pigeon-toed, kids can be cruel, man. Kids can be cruel, and so I think that was part of that journey. There was the part where I grew up on a ranch and fed 200 cows every night after school, and learned that you can do things that, like, this little tiny girl who weighed next to nothing could throw bales over the fence, if I had to. So there was those kind of things. And 20 below zero, you learn that you've got resilience in you that you didn't know. But I think the biggest lessons for me probably came from my brother. My
Mm,
brother, when I was a freshman in college, sophomore in college, sophomore or freshman in college. Yeah, he was a junior in high school, and he was in a very, very serious car accident, and had a traumatic brain injury, and his best friend was killed in the accident, and it was a very, very serious accident. And I think that shakes your whole world.
mm,
It just shakes everything you know to be true. All the things you thought were important stop being important. It really makes you question everything. And he fought to bring himself back to life, and he struggled, and then I think this was also a reason we ended up going to Costa Rica. It was because in December of 2018, so the a year about 15 months before COVID hit, he was in another serious car accident with a head trauma. And it's he's a miracle. He's a miracle. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. But so there's things that I look at. His attitude about life is, he's the most positive human being I've ever met, with bar none, the most positive, uplifting, courageous human being I know. And so, I look at all that he's been through and how he maintains this attitude and love of life, and I think, well, I've got the ability to do things he can't do, and I feel a responsibility to not let that lie, to not just
mm,
take that for granted. And so, that year after his second accident, he was in, brain trauma hospital after brain trauma hospital, and so we're traveling back and forth to be with him. And then my dad passes away, and then COVID hits. So it was like this bam, 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 bam. And when those things happen, you have to go, well, I can I can either let this defeat me and make me feel like, oh, poor me, and look at all this horrible stuff that's happening, or I can say, who do I want to be in this? And what can I do to experience myself being the person I want to be in this? But you're just doing the best you can. So
hmm. Mm, I remember the second accident. I didn't even know about the first. So, wow.
Yeah.
I am curious to know what do you do to keep yourself kind of grounded, to make you feel like strong, the ability to kind of even just look at the day and go, okay, I'm going to conquer it. What are some of your
Heather, this
habits?
has been really interesting for me because, as you know, and for those of you that are listening, I broke my ankle July 17th, right? So, well, we were visiting Costa Rica. We were there for a month and I broke it a week in. And what has always anchored me is nature and walking, right? And so, that's walking would be my salve, nature would be my salve. That's where I also would listen to podcasts and I would, that was the time where I could kind of ground myself in my own life
Mhm.
and reflect on what's important and reflect on things maybe I wanted to do a little differently and some apologies I might need to make and all of those things that happen because you're human and not being able to walk has been a very interesting experience for me because I would love to say that I have found the other thing that grounds me in the same way, but I've struggled the last month. I've
Mm.
struggled finding that center for myself, and I think that was always what it was this kind of a centering
Mm.
thing for me. And so, I'm actively trying to figure out how do I center when I don't have the thing. I can't do the thing that has
Mm.
always served me in that way. And but that's what that's what happens in life, right? You've got things that work for you, and then for whatever reason, you can't do that thing. And that what does that mean? Does that mean you just stop and become, this sad, sorry, self-pitying, person? Or do you find another thing?
Mhm.
Right? Do you
Exactly.
find another thing? And
Yes.
and I would love to say it's a fast, easy thing. Of course,
Mm.
I teach this stuff and I write on this stuff and I
Yeah.
this dialed in. No, it is okay. I've got to work my tools. I've got to
Mhm.
find the thing that anchors me because what I know to be true is I cannot be and bring my best, most authentic and powerful self if I'm not anchored, if I don't have the thing that grounds me. And
Mm.
so I think it's critical for every one of us to get really curious about what is that thing that we need. And some of it's connection, right? With people like you. So today you are my thing. Thank you
You're
very
my
much. I
thing too.
appreciate that.
You're my thing too.
I think it's like we have to be mindful. We can't
Yes.
just hope that we're going to stumble upon it because that's not the way life works.
It's so true. Well, so I've been sick now for a week, and it was like yucky this last week, and it's only a week, so it's like, again, this is nothing compared to folks that have illnesses that are,
Right,
that go
right.
for the rest of their life, right? But just thinking about, I've been realizing this last week how my routine, even over this last few weeks, to be honest, I was traveling a whole bunch. My routine was out of whack,
Hmm.
and it's my routine that grounds me, and it's multiple things that are in a row
Yes.
that make up my routine.
Yeah.
And so during this last week, though, being sick, this is where health is so critical, like the
Right.
broken ankle, being
Right.
sick,
Right.
is I could just feel myself, like, not only like just being out, there's two things that happened. One was, okay, there's an acceptance that I'm not going to be able to be in my routine. Heather, stop trying to be so hard on yourself because you're not going to be in your
Yes.
routine. But there was
Right.
also this, I'm not going to lie to you, let's just get real here, this abdicating of responsibility to say, are there any elements of your routine you can still stick to, even though you can't do these other elements of your routine? And I just let
Uh-huh.
myself completely loose.
No, I
Like I just
understand
said,
that.
I said, nope. I can't do these things. So then I'm just going to this is where it's at. I'm just going to have all the bread I want, all the desserts I want. I'm going to drink all I want. Like, I'm just going to do everything I
Yes.
want.
Yes.
And I was like, wait a second. Okay, just because you can't do the other things, you don't want to get people sick or you can't do that. Why are you all of a sudden like completely releasing? I am human. I mean, this is the point, right? We're all human. But sometimes in that self-leadership space, hmm, like I'm not always leading myself at 100%. But I can't blame
That
anybody else. I'm not
it
blaming
is
anybody
so
else.
true. But you don't realize you're doing it until you catch yourself later. And then the question is can you laugh at it like you're doing right now? Like,
Oh
can I
yeah.
laugh at myself and go, wow, what a weird creature I am. I cannot believe I know better than this.
No, I knew I was
Or
doing.
do
I
you
knew what
beat
I was doing
yourself
when I was
up?
doing it.
Huh?
No, when I was eating that piece of bread that I
Yeah.
normally wouldn't eat, or I was eating the dessert that I normally, because I would only have, like, I know what my routine is.
Yeah.
So as I was doing it, I'm like, uh-huh. Like
Yep,
I'm
gonna do this
recognizing
anyway.
that
Well,
right. I think that's the why it's becoming. That's literally why it's becoming, not
yes,
become or
yes,
be. Like, because you
yes,
always are in a state of like we fall back and the humanity of all of us and the choices that we make, and some of them serve us and some of them don't, and some of them serve us in the short term and not in the long term, and all the things. There's like this
exactly.
whole plethora of things that can go down that line. And
But
so
how
I'm not going to
long,
kick
I
myself.
think that the challenge is how can we make that space between awareness that we're doing the thing that's not serving us and course correction shorter, because if you can do that, you're going to be human. We're
Totally.
going to mess up, we're going to react, we're going to intentionally do those things that we know we shouldn't be doing. And but can you get yourself back on track with yourself, right? And I
Yes,
think that's the
yes.
key.
And I
And you
did
can't
today.
do that unless you know yourself.
Yes,
Unless you know
we
yourself
have
and
to.
you give yourself grace, right? You can say, it's okay. I'm human. And
Yep.
all right, what do I do now? What do I do
Yep.
now?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like what I love about this entire show, this one thing that you said is I've got to use my tools.
Yes.
And I think that is so important
Yes.
that over the years, we do gather up tools. We have a toolkit and we can intentionally add things to it. Like,
Yes.
reading Kimberly's book, taking Kimberly's, the new, I think it's Being Brave or Become Brave, Be Brave. Is it what it called? The assessment that you have?
Oh, now be brave. Now be
Now
brave.
be brave. So
Now be
she has
brave
this new
assessment. Yeah.
assessment. The just the work I do on the self leadership side or caring leadership. There's so many different things. There's so many different tools you can grab out that say, how do I become a better human? How do I? And I think one of the things that I was thinking about too, when you were saying kind of like being my full self, making a choice to be my full self, to show up as my full self, is I did realize probably, and it's only maybe in the last couple of years. So I'm just going to say this 100% truthfully. If you're listening to this and you're 30 something, you're listen now because you're getting like the best benefit of this, right? Which is I was doing a lot of things for other people.
Yeah.
Like I was doing a lot of things to prove it. It was more like a past history of other people who aren't even still alive, which is kind of the
Yeah.
craziest thing.
Yeah.
And I realized this last couple of years, I actually was excited to find out how I could be my full self for me.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay.
I
So
discovered.
can I just make sure I clarify something, because I
Yes.
think something you said was so powerful and so important, is that when you said you were doing it for other people, what I heard, and you started to say it but you didn't say the word, you were trying to prove yourself to other
Yeah.
people who
To other
live
people who
into
weren't even live.
their expectations, or or show them that I can do this or
Yeah.
whatever. And that what shifted for you is how can you do this to bring you to life instead of
For me.
to honor
Bring me to
yourself
life
for
for me.
yourself. Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. Versus doing it again to say like this is whatever. And it would just it might sound nuanced to some people, but I can tell you the level of freedom that took place when I crossed over the line of wanting to
Yeah.
do the thing that helped me be my fullest self and be me
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
versus for others or whatever it
Yeah.
could be.
Yeah.
The level of authenticity, a level of relaxation, the level
Yeah.
of less stress that took
Yeah.
place in that
Yeah.
time. And again, it didn't happen until I was over 50. So it just
Yeah.
this is the
Right.
becoming
Right.
part. This is the becoming part.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so it's interesting because a lot of the work, in fact, almost all the work I do is around impact and this thinking, what's the impact that you want to have? And a lot of people get that confused in thinking that that's focusing only on what they want and not what you want. And actually, it's not that's not the case at all. Because when you're clear about the impact you want to have, what that does is it takes your values and it takes your strengths and it marries them into your purpose, and it focuses you in action to have the impact you want to have, which allows you, because it's your values and your strengths and your purpose, allows you to be you powerfully in the world, right? So you're not focused on,
Hmm.
well, how do I prove myself to Heather? You're
Yep.
focused on what's the impact I want to have on Heather. And
Yep.
when I'm focusing on that, then I get to be myself powerfully in the world. And I'm
Yep.
not trying to please you, and I'm trying to have whatever impact I want to have in this moment. And that changes it.
Well, I think too, I feel like I had one side of me that's always been present is focusing on the impact for others. That one has always
Yeah.
been present. I've always been
Yeah.
very outward, others focused. And what changed is I needed to say what's best for me. And that's what
Right.
took place in the last
Well,
couple of
and
years.
here's the
Before it was
thing, you
very
can't
outward,
have the
outward, outward.
impact you want to have if you're not taking care of yourself. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
That's you don't have a whole self
Totally.
to bring to the playing space if you're not taking care of yourself.
Exactly. In all the
And
ways that I need to be taken care, like in all the
yeah,
ways,
yeah,
right?
right.
Not
And
necessarily the
it's so
obvious
funny, and I
ways.
don't know if this is particularly true for women. I think it probably is, but the message of taking care of yourself is almost communicated as being selfish in our culture,
Yeah.
when I actually think it is the opposite. It's the most selfless thing, because if you are whole,
Mhm.
now you've got a full self that can contribute into the world. And so I'm hoping we can reframe that for people.
So for you, as we kind of wrap up, what do you think, well, in your words, what do you think becoming unshakable really looks like and can look like for all of us in the world today?
I think it's grounded in really having clarity about what drives you, your purpose, who you are, your values and strengths and purpose, and using that as a guidepost for decision making. Um, Using that as a tool to keep yourself whole in order to navigate all the crazy ups and downs that life is going to throw at you, because it will. Because if you don't know what you stand for, you're just reacting in survival mode. And if you know what you stand for, then you can make clear decisions about what do you need to be and bring your best self to the situation. And I think that is, for me, that's the core of becoming unshakable. Because if I can stand in, this is why I'm here, this is the impact I want to have, then it allows me to be me powerfully. And it allows me to get myself back on track with myself when I'm human and I react and I'm not bringing my best self. So for me, that's the key.
Mm, yeah. You are one of my people for sure, right? We are just you're
Yeah.
today is the day you filled me up. Thank
It's
you
a
for
love
this,
fest.
my lovely Kimberly. For those who are listening, hopefully you took goodness away from this too. And obviously, make sure you share this
Yeah.
episode far and wide. But go do something different to help yourself in this becoming unshakable journey that we're all on, and you can
Yeah.
see the humanity that's wrapped into it. And so, I just thank you so much for being on here with me, Kimberly. Just
Oh,
love you,
this
love you.
was a joy. Anytime I get to spend with Heather is a joy.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Becoming Unshakable podcast. Be well.